Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to this live stream. If you don't know who I am, my name is Claire Fraise, and I am an award-winning author who makes videos on this YouTube channel, sharing the tips and things that helped me make my own writing better. This is a very informal live stream. I did a couple of these last year or maybe the year before, and I really enjoyed doing them. I will just sit here and drink some tea and make myself available to you for the next 45 minutes to an hour. If any of you have any questions about your writing projects or things that you are working on, I would be more than happy to talk about them and to answer these questions and just to be somebody to bounce ideas off of. So if you don't have any questions, I will just be sitting here working, but please, if you just want another like pair of ears to bounce things off of or to workshop anything, I am here at your disposal for the next hour. So this is like informal writing coffee hour where we can discuss writing in our projects. So thank you all if you're here. I will just be hanging out, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm personally working on a short story right now that is set, or not a short story, more like a novella set in the universe of my current series. And so I am fleshing out that outline and trying to figure out how I'm going to tell that story because I had an idea for how I was going to tell it, but I don't think it's the strongest way that I can approach it. So I will be fleshing that out in the meantime. Oh, cool. We got a question. Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for coming. Brandon asked, so I recently tried the free Booksy promotion and got about 2,000 downloads. I'm wondering how long you had to wait before reviews started coming in. Well, that's awesome that you got 2,000 downloads. Congrats. I'm trying to think about the timeline. So I don't know if you watched my update video after I made that video about the promotion. A couple months later, I made an update and talked about how things went and generally how things were going. I was expecting a big splash as soon as I got the downloads. It took at least a month for me to start seeing a difference. So it doesn't happen overnight. You'll probably start to see a couple of reviews come in over the course of the month, but it'll hopefully jump up a little bit by about the 1 month mark. I personally was pretty disappointed because I got something, I got 8,000 downloads and I only jumped up by maybe 100 reviews or something. So I don't think everybody who downloaded the book read it. I know a lot of people who participate in free promotions just download the book and add it to their Kindle library, and it takes a really long time for them to read it if they read it at all. And then maybe they'll rate and review the book, a year later, but you don't know it's because of the promotion. Oh, so you got 3 ratings so far, but no reviews. Yeah, it's frustrating, but I think that how long ago did you do the promotion? Because it took around a month or at least a couple weeks for me to start seeing much of a difference. Hopefully, they'll start coming in. It was only about 5 days since I started it. Oh, yeah, so I think that you're in a good spot right now. I wouldn't worry too much. I think that you are in a good place, and just to be a little bit of be a little patient and give it some time. I know it's really hard to do. Yeah, I was too, because it blew my mind that I got that many downloads and I got so excited. And I was refreshing the Amazon page every single day, expecting, my sales, like my reviews to jump up by, at least 1,000 because I got so many downloads. That did not happen. It's been, I think, a year and a half since I ran that promotion. And I just crossed over into 400 reviews yesterday and I was over the moon. So it is definitely a challenge and it takes a little while, but that's really awesome that you got that many downloads and that is so many new potential readers and fans that you reached. So when I started thinking about it that way, it was comforting. All right. Ivory Roses asked, I'm writing my first draft And sometimes I feel that the information I drop through dialogue comes out really icky and tips. By the way, I love oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you like my videos. Um, do you mean icky as in it feels info dumpy? Like it's just you're trying to feed information through the dialogue and it comes across as, two characters are walking and it's like, "Oh, Dan, do you remember that time in the 6th grade that mom said that she wished that I was adopted?" It was, is it info dumpy in that way? Yeah, okay, yeah, so it feels unnatural. Dialogue is really tricky because you don't wanna do exposition by writing big info dump paragraphs, and you want to weave it into dialogue, but you don't want the audience to think that it's exposition. So it's tricky, and it's something that there is no cut and dry method to. I think that if you have a scene where you feel that there is a lot of information that the readers have to know that you're trying to drop through dialogue, I would maybe try to highlight it and figure out exactly what you want the reader to know and what the reader has to know in order to get through that scene and that part of the story. And maybe you're trying to put too much information into the scene. Maybe you're trying to shove too much exposition into the dialogue when you don't need that much exposition and you can just boil it down to what the reader really has to know. There are also possibly other ways that you can do it. Like you can drop a little piece of information in one conversation and then through movement, like if your character is walking through their town, they can see different things that will explain different pieces of exposition. So you don't try to cram it all into one conversation. Dialogue can also feel unnatural if it doesn't feel like it's authentic character speech. And this comes back to character voice because you want your dialogue to sound like an actual person talking, kind of. You don't want it to sound exactly like a person talking because if you recorded somebody talking and wrote out exactly word for word what they said and wrote it in a book, it would not sound very good. It would be very rambly and long and convoluted and frustrating to read. So it's tricky with dialogue when you try to take something and make it sound like a natural human speaking, but it can't really be as natural as a human speaking. So my best advice would be to boil it down to exactly what you need your readers to know to make it through that scene, and B, read your dialogue out loud because if it sounds unnatural, you'll be able to tell by reading it out loud, and maybe you'll be able to hear as you're reading it an easier, more natural way to write that. If you have a short scene, you can paste it in the comments and we can workshop it together here. If you want another set of eyes on it, I could tell you how I might edit it. But yeah, it's tricky. Dialogue can be really frustrating. I'm so glad that it helped. Yeah. It's really hard. It's hard for me. Like when I edit my books, I have to highlight every single piece of dialogue and read it out loud because sometimes it just doesn't quite sound right, especially in the planning chapters when the characters have to make a plan to stop the villain or something, and then all of their dialogue sounds very over-explanatory. Oh, thank you so much, Luke. I'm so glad that you liked They Stay. And yeah, so I am making a plan for the They Stay YouTube channel. I will be covering this in one of my more one of my forthcoming YouTube videos. It's not a goal that I totally smashed last year, the takeoff and growth of the They Stay YouTube channel. I need to make more videos. I have started putting together a content calendar and have started filming some more videos for that channel, including uploading They Return and They Hunt. They Hunt's audiobook has not been produced yet, so it's starting production this month, and then it'll be a little bit before that audiobook even exists. But They Return will be up there. It is a little bit of a pain to compile the audiobooks into a format that YouTube likes, and it takes 12 hours to export it and upload it at least. So that's been a little bit of the block in my ability to do that because of the book launch and all of these and the holidays and everything. So that is going to happen and more videos will happen. And I'm very grateful for your support of the channel. And thank you so much for reading the books. And I'm really, really, really happy that you like They Stay. Brandon asked, have you ever tried BookBub promotions? No, I haven't. But BookBub feature deals are extremely hard to get. I have heard amazing things about them if you're able to get them. I've also heard that it's more likely that you will get a BookBub featured deal if you fit very squarely into a genre that sells well on Kindle. Now, I'm not an expert in this. I've never done BookBub promotions, so don't quote me on this. This is just me repeating things that I've heard in podcasts and in author circles, but it can be very hard to get them. People apply like every single cycle that they can frequently to get them, and then might only get one in the span of a couple of years. They're difficult to get. But when they do go out, they sell books like gangbusters. So they're definitely worth trying for. I've applied for one before. I haven't gotten it, but I also haven't really hustled to try to get one for They Stay. So if you can get one, you should absolutely do that. I have not done any paid advertising on BookBub, so I can't speak to that. And I only do ads through Facebook, and I have minimal Amazon ad experience. But I've heard really great things about BookBub promotions, and some mixed things about BookBub ads. Some people really like them, some people really don't. But yeah, I think I've heard people in like fantasy and urban fantasy and sci-fi and lots of those genres and romance get BookBub featured deals, and then their books like explode and take off in the sales rankings and things. So yeah, I haven't done them. I've only ever done newsletter promotions like the one that I spoke to in that video that I made, but I did try that again, and no other time that I did it was I as successful as the first time. So I think that because I was using the same lists, all those people had already seen my book, and they might have already downloaded on their Kindle, or the people within those lists might have already, like the people within those lists that would, like they say, had already downloaded it or read it or had it on their Kindle, so it wasn't as successful. Yeah, Amazon ads are really tricky. I've never been able to master them, and I've never been able to turn a profit with them. I think you really need to understand keywords. I know authors that do amazing with Amazon ads and can, finance their whole author business just with Amazon ads. I don't know enough about ads to really have made that something that happened for me. I decided to focus on Facebook ads because that was like I was just focusing on one thing at a time, and I'm focused on learning Facebook ads now. And that's enough of a challenge as it is. But yeah, Facebook ads, if you do things correctly and you're able to get your cost per click down, you can get 16 cents per click to get views, and that's way better than $1.50 per click. But I also know that you can get that down on Amazon. You just have to bid. It depends on the keyword that you use, and I think put in a bid, and then depending on the amount of your bid, it might show your book for that keyword or it might not. It's just a little more complicated. I've never really understood it. Oh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed the horror writing tips. Thank you so much for watching them. I'm really glad that they were helpful. I really enjoyed writing those and filming those. I love thinking about horror, and I mean, my books are not dark horror, creepy horror, but I do borrow horror elements in them, and I do really, really like writing about horror. What do you think about using a pen name? I don't know if you're using one, but it's something I decided to do. I think that if you want to use a pen name, it's a great idea. I think pen names are awesome. I love pen names. I think that they're great to add a layer of security to yourself and to your brand, and some separation between yourself and your brand. It gives you a little bit of mobility between your real life identity and your author identity. And you're able to, have different names depending on what you want to write. And you can have, if you want to write romance and dark slasher horror, you don't have to write them both under the same name. You can have two different pen names and still be the same person, because author brands usually have one type of book that they write, because there are so many authors out there. People, if they know an author, they know them for one specific type of thing. And if they go and read that author's books, they want to get that thing that, they want to get what they usually go to that author for. So if, you have a romance author that always does delivers the feelings, they go to the romance author for the feelings, and they probably might not read a book that romance author puts out that is a dark slasher horror. But people are multidimensional. Authors are multidimensional. People want to write and publish different things. So I think that pen names are awesome, and great tools to be able to separate out your different author identities. Ivy Roses asked, Claire, do you do workshops for writing? Just wondering before I have to leave soon. I don't host writing workshops, but I am throwing around the idea of doing something like that on the channel. I don't know the correct format to do it. I keep coming back to this format, but this format's a little trickier. If you have any suggestions, if there's something that you'd like to see, or if there's a way that you would like a writing workshop to be structured on YouTube, please just like, if you want to write up a comment before you leave, that way I can see it and I can read it. I would love to do something like that. And this is my attempt at doing something like that, but it's harder when you manage a writing workshop and have, I figured it was easier to do it like this so that anybody who's a subscriber of the channel can just drop in instead of managing a whole separate like Google group or list or something like that for writing workshops. But if that's something that anybody would like to be a part of, or something that you're interested in, or have an idea for a format that would work, if this format doesn't work very well, just drop it in the comments and I would love to hear your feedback as I go about planning this new writing workshop. Because I do really like having these like weekly or, frequent sessions where we can just talk about writing in this kind of way. And then I can learn about what you guys are working on and have it be a little bit less like I pick a topic and talk at you. We can talk about the things that you're working on, and then I can be more helpful to you as a writing resource. Oh, I'm glad you like it. What I could do is I could create some sort of like Google folder or Google Drive type thing that's public, and then post the link in the comments or in the description of the videos. And then if people want writing that they want me to workshop, like within a certain word count or page count, they can copy and paste it into the doc, and then they can come to the live sessions and we can discuss it. That might be or we can treat it, because I think that it's the most helpful when it's a writing group and everybody contributes and comments on each other's stuff. So I don't exactly know how helpful that would be, but I could give you my feedback. It's just harder because you can't really hear from other people unless people write comments about the stories, which could be possible. I'll have to do some more thinking about that, but I am definitely thinking about it. I always want to find better ways to make this community stronger and make this a more helpful channel to you guys. So yeah, any suggestions, drop them. I'm like gonna Google this Google Docs thing and see if this is something that would work and just try to brainstorm some ideas. But if anybody else who's here has any questions about their writing projects or things that they're working on, or if you have pieces of dialogue or short scenes that you want feedback on, I don't know if there's a comment limit for the live, but feel free to drop them in the comments. And I am here and would love to talk to you about your writing projects if you have any questions about anything. Oh, we got a question. Diablo Jack wrote, I'm working on my first novel. I'm 15 chapters in. How many chapters do I need to be taken seriously as an author? First of all, you don't have to be, you don't like, there's no chapter number that will make you like be taken seriously as an author. Like that should not be the goal to like be taken seriously as an author. If you're writing a book, you are a writer. If you take yourself seriously and you sit down every day and you write a full novel, you are an author. Congratulations. And you can if you take yourself seriously, other people will take you seriously too. So I don't think that you need to worry about that. I think as long as you believe in yourself and you believe in your story and you're showing up for yourself and you take your work seriously, then everybody is gonna people will take you seriously if you take yourself seriously. So I don't think you need to worry about that. And that's really exciting that you are 15 chapters in. That is a really, really big accomplishment that you have done, and like working on your first novel is really exciting. So I think that you should celebrate yourself for that and give yourself a big pat on the back. I reject the notion that, I think every single person who writes is a writer. There should be no gatekeeping of who's a real writer and who's a serious writer and who's not a serious writer. Like, you have people who publish books and you have people who don't publish books, but everybody's a writer and everybody's an author if they write a book. So there's no like hierarchy there at all. I'm working on a story that started as a pastiche of Victorian authors. So I'm breaking a ton of rules in terms of vocab and sentence structure. But your recommendations about how to make the reader feel are very helpful. I'm glad that they are helpful. What do you mean about breaking rules in terms of vocab and sentence structure? What rules are you breaking? That's very exciting. That story sounds really interesting. And I think that all stories should make readers like that. That's really what writing is, and what our main goal as authors is to make people feel something, because our stories have clearly made us feel something. So it's like committing what we feel to the paper in the hopes that it also makes somebody else feel something. And I think people read because they want to feel something. There's there are a lot of potential reasons that people read, but at least for the type of reader that I am, the reason that I read is just to get lost in worlds and to enjoy stories and to enjoy the characters and what they're going on, or like in the different like journeys that they're going on. I listened to a podcast once that said that writing a book should, like, the enjoyment that somebody gets out of reading a book should be equivalent to the enjoyment that somebody gets eating like the most delicious piece of cheesecake. Like, it's your job as the writer to make your book like the most delectable, delicious piece of cheesecake for the reader ever, and put in all of the things that they enjoy so that they get the best feeling and experience from reading it. And that makes it really fun for us as writers too, because we get to put all of the stuff that we enjoy in the story too. And we get to live with the story longer than the readers do. Do you see any particular marketing or publishing challenges regarding dystopian science fiction? Well, so the book that I published while I was in high school was a dystopian novel, but I did not know enough about marketing. When I was 16, I was just learning everything to have any kind of expertise in dystopian science fiction specifically. I will say that in the market research that I've done as of May of 2023, dystopian science fiction is actually a pretty great genre to self-publish in. This is like in the young adult sphere, because there are a lot of people that love reading dystopian science fiction, but traditional publishing has not been loving dystopian science fiction post the boom that happened after the Hunger Games. So because of that, a lot of people have been publishing it, I think, online and self-publishing it. But the readers still love it, and the readers who enjoyed those books when traditional publishing was publishing it still exist. So that market is there and that audience is there. It is very competitive. I think like the numbers that I was looking at looked like the market was pretty saturated. Like, there were a lot of titles coming out, so it was a little bit harder to be one of the top titles in that genre, but it's not impossible. I think that a big publishing challenge for dystopian fiction, especially in the young adult sphere — I don't know anything outside the young adult sphere because that's what I write and all of the research that I've done — is that traditional publishing still doesn't really love dystopian science fiction, at least in the Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner type style where it's totalitarianism is bad and the government is evil and going to oppress everybody. And then, there's a giant revolution and suddenly the teenagers save the world. That style of dystopian science fiction is not very prevalent anymore in the traditional publishing sphere. And at least years ago, when I was looking into querying a different book, a lot of agents would list in their bios, like, I'll take this, but no dystopian. So I don't know if that's changed recently. I haven't been querying or looked into querying for anything in years, so it might be changing. I have seen a couple of titles that are dystopian, but like more of a dystopian in the Handmaid's Tale type dystopian instead of the traditional YA dystopian. So I would say that that's definitely a publishing challenge. And then in terms of marketing, I think that the audience is there and the readers are there. I don't think it's any different from any other genre. You just need to be able to find your readers. But if that's what you love to write, I say absolutely go for it. I love reading dystopian fiction. I think it's awesome. I wish there was more of it out there. I mean, there is a lot of it out there. I read self-published dystopian fiction. It's awesome. Diablo Jack wrote, I have enough material for 17 chapters. I just feel like most novels have like 30 chapters. Yeah, so I think that depending on the length of your book, if you're looking for standard kind of length rules, I think anything under 40,000 words in like an adult novel is considered not enough. Like a novel is maybe 40,000 words and above. I can look it up for you, but there are some kind of rules of thumb in publishing about word count. Let me look it up for you just to make sure I give you the right information. So if it's around 20,000 words, like 30,000 words, that's like novella length. Writer's Digest typically recommends over 80,000 words for a full book, but I think that the industry standard is over 50,000 words. So if it's over 50,000 words, it's considered a novel. The sweet spot is around between 70 and 100,000 words for a novel. Longer than that, it happens, but they're long books. And shorter than that, you go more into novella territory. So that's typically how agents and editors and industry people think about it. So if your chapters are really long, that, you could already be at novel length. And if it's not long and if it's a lot shorter by word count, I would think about exactly, like, I would break your story down and identify what the central conflict of this story is. Like, who's your main character? What do they want? What is their goal? And what is standing in the way of them getting that goal? And chart out that entire plot. And then try to figure out, like, from like cause and effect, what makes your character get from point A to point B and from point B to point C, and what are other things that could interrupt those pathways, because there's often a lot more little subplots and intricacies and things that you can dive into when you're exploring a conflict in a story. So I would not shy away from exploring and digging more into subplots. I made a whole video about this, actually. I have it's like how to fix underwriting, like when your book is too short. So if that is the case with your story, I would maybe suggest going to check that out. But chapter length should not be an issue. It's just, or like how many chapters you have doesn't matter. It's more about the word count and then how in depth you go into the story. And not all stories are meant to be novels. Some are meant to be novellas and some are meant to be short stories. So if your story, like if the central conflict isn't big enough to carry a novel, then just keep it as a novella or keep it as a short story and keep it as something that's more contained. I mean, your story is definitely not a short story if it's 17 chapters, but I would not try to force length if you don't think that the story supports it. But if you do start exploring and be like, oh, this is another thing that could happen, or this would complicate this, and this would totally mess up this relationship, and then this character could go off and do this, which would mess up this, and then the characters would have to go around and fix this before they did this, then your story will naturally start to become bigger. So it just takes a little bit of playing around with. I personally never have that problem. My books are always way too long, and I have to cut them down, sometimes more successfully than other times. Um, good luck. I hope that your writing project goes well. That sounds very interesting and exciting to write. And good luck finding the correct way to market that. That will be great and a challenge and potentially awesome. Brandon said, how do you find people to get critique from, beta readers, etc.? I want to find people to exchange writing with, but I'm not so sure where to look. I find a lot of beta readers, or I have found a lot of beta readers on Facebook, in Facebook groups. There are Facebook groups saying like beta readers wanted, beta reader groups, and you can go in and you can say like, I have a book that's this many words that's about this. I'm looking for some beta readers. Is anybody interested? And I found a lot of beta readers that way. A lot of people are in those groups looking for swaps. So if they'll beta read your book, if you beta read their book. I've done some of these before. I typically prefer working with beta readers at this point in my author career, just because I am overwhelmed with writing projects and content creation and all of these other things. So I found a really great beta reading team and have assembled that beta reading team based on, I've found some people on Facebook, some people on Goodreads. Oh, you don't like Facebook. Yeah, Facebook. I don't like any social media except YouTube. I like YouTube, but most social media is pretty awful. But I'm on Facebook just for this kind of networking purpose and for like running ads and managing the author business. I have also found a lot of beta readers on Goodreads. Goodreads has a great network and it's pretty extensive of beta readers, and they have forums where you can do the same thing. Like you go in and say, you know, I have this book and it's this length and I'm looking for people to read it, and people might respond that way. You can also go in and like on social media, sometimes if you put out a calling for like beta readers wanted, it's a little harder because it only goes out to your followers, but sometimes you'll have a follower that is interested in reading it. But it does take a little while to assemble a team. And it's challenging. I put the emphasis when I was first assembling my beta team on my ARC team and doing like finding people who would review my book. But now I have enough of a foundation in the series that I am putting more emphasis on the beta team to make sure that the books that I put out in the series are strong and the people are going to like them when they read them. The people, no, my readers are going to like them when I release them. So, all right. Yeah, I hope that helped. Diablo Jack said each chapter is around 3,500 words. I'm going off an 80-page screenplay that I wrote. Oh yeah, 3,500 words is a solid length for a chapter. It does sound like your book might be, well, no. I mean, you have to tally up. Yeah, I'm really bad at math. I'm not even going to attempt to try to multiply and figure out what your total word count is because I'm just going to embarrass myself on YouTube Live. But you know, as long as you're in the right target word count, then you can figure out like whether it's considered a novel or a novella or anything like that. But I mean, my chapters are all between like 2,500 words and 3,500 words. Like that's a good sweet spot for a chapter. Yeah, well, I think it's good to focus on, I mean, depending on what you want your readership to be and who you want to market your books to, you want to make sure that the story that you're telling is accessible and it doesn't feel like you're talking down to them at all with your world building. Like, I think that's a very good aim. And I think that it's interesting if people don't know what those things are, that they'll be able to learn about these like historical events in a very accessible and engaging way through fiction. So that sounds really interesting. And it's really hard to make stories feel old fashioned, and like writing historical fiction is so difficult. I'm like tipping my hat to you. It's just, I've never been brave enough to attempt it. My creative writing professor in college said his one rule for us in class was that we could write whatever we wanted as long as it's not historical fiction, just to save us the agony. Like, it sucks. You don't want to write historical fiction. So he very effectively scared me. So I have a lot of respect for people that take on historical fiction writing projects. Very nice. No, I am very happy with you promo spamming. That's absolutely okay. We love self promo here in writing Q&A on Write with Claire Fraise. I do it all the time. In all my YouTube videos, I self promo all the time. So that's very exciting. I am very excited for you and hope that your writing project is going well. This is fun. I like hearing about what you guys are working on. If anybody else popped in and has any questions about writing or craft, I am here just casually here to answer any questions that you have about writing, about marketing, about self-publishing, about the industry, and anything that I might know about it. I am offering myself up as a resource if you have any questions or want somebody to bounce ideas off of or brainstorm with. Just drop any questions in the comments. Oh, any advice on writing a good blurb? Well, blurbs can be very challenging. I am not very good at writing blurbs, and I have messed around with They Stays blurb 10 million times. I have read a lot of blurbs. I think that helps. Just internalizing the kind of salesy language that you want to have in a blurb. But I think the most important thing that you want to get across in a blurb is you just want to get your book hook. And you want every single book to have a hook. You want to have a character who wants something powerful, like an engaging character who wants something, and like, you know, there's some sort of something standing in their way. You don't want to spoil it, but you want the blurb to kind of go up until the inciting incident. So if you have a story about a kid who, you know, gets bitten by a radioactive spider and starts developing weird powers, and then like gets sucked into this like really crazy life where he's like trying to like learn how to be a superhero, the blurb would be like, you know, this dude was just a normal dude until one day he gets bitten by a spider, and oh no, he's now developing weird powers. All these weird things are happening. How is he going to get out of this crazy thing that has suddenly started happening to him? So it goes up until like the little grabbing hook at the beginning of your story. You don't want it to reveal too much of your story, because otherwise people are going to be pretty bored reading all the way up until that big plot point, because they already know what's going to happen on the blurb. But that also goes back to, you want to make sure that you have an attention grabbing, reader grabbing hook at the beginning of your book. I mean, so that's how I've always written blurbs, but those are also the types of books that I write. They're very like plot focused and focused on the stakes and the characters and the goals and the, you know, fight on the quest for the journey to get the thing. And there are a bunch of different types of books. There are a bunch of different types of blurbs. There are some really great books on writing blurbs that I can recommend, because I am not an expert in blurb writing. And let me pull up their names real quick so I can share them with you. Let's see. Sorry, please hold. I just want to make sure that I get the right books, because I'm thinking of some that I've read and I'm just forgetting exactly. Okay, so this one, it's called How to Write a Sizzling Synopsis by Brian Cohen. That's a great book, and that breaks down the whole blurb writing process and will show you all the different parts of like how to condense your book and condense it into like its most crucial elements, and then figure out which ones are the most interesting, and then write the copy. So I don't know if I can just, let me drop this in the comments. I'm just going to drop the Amazon link. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but that is, oh, it's split it up for some reason. Let me see if I can go and figure out a better way to give that to you. If you just Google it, like how to write a sizzling synopsis, you will find it. Brian Cohen is a great resource on learning how to write blurbs. he really knows what he's talking about. He's really knowledgeable and a very nice guy and very helpful. So I definitely recommend that. And I'm sure he's done interviews on YouTube. If you Google like Brian Cohen on blurbs, I would bet my hat that he's done interviews and videos on that. So that also might be worth looking up and taking a listen to. Let's see if I can go on YouTube to paste the full link. Oh, cool. All right, good. I'm glad it works. Yeah, I am not an expert in blurb writing. I've changed They Stay's blurb so many times and I've workshopped them. One thing that I do, because I do run ads to my book, I haven't always, but I've started working harder on like learning how to run ads to find new readers and try to learn how to use the Facebook ads platform. And one thing that I've done is I've tested different blurbs. So I've run different blurbs to different audiences and seen which ones people respond to better. And then that has given me some insight into which ones are the best. But that's like, I did not do that for a while before starting to learn Facebook ads last year. So it's hit or miss, but if you read it to people, then you can get their feedback on it. And it's hard because the original blurb that I wrote for it, I thought really made sense, but then other people read it and were still confused on things that I didn't even know they could be confused on because they were really clear to me. So definitely get a lot of feedback and workshop it. And keep it as simple as you can. When you're browsing for books, you don't need to know every single, you don't need to be introduced to 6 different characters in the blurb. Like, focus on one character, focus on one thing, or, maybe 2 characters. Focus on like one storyline and the most interesting hook that happens in your book that could convince somebody to want to read it. So, yeah, I think we are just getting close to wrapping up. If anybody has any more last minute questions, now is your chance to ask them before I have to head out. And I'm going to be doing these every week for the next, at least few weeks. So if anybody wants to, come next time, or if you have a question that you don't want to ask now, but you want to ask later, if you're working on something and you anticipate running into a problem, I will also be doing this next week. So feel free to pop in then and ask me a question then. But if there's no other questions, thank you so much to everybody who came to this little Q&A session. I hope that this was helpful to you. I really enjoyed answering your questions and chatting with you guys about what you're working on. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. And as always, happy writing. Bye, everybody.